Ideas flood my mind like stars, dancing and twinkling, bright and brilliant. I soar up to meet them, eagerly grabbing at each one and letting its flame energize me. My beautiful thoughts become a spinning galaxy of light, and I climb higher and higher, giddily spinning amongst the chaos. But suddenly I'm so high up there's no air, only cold, and I can't breathe, and when I look to my galaxy, it's turned to a black hole that pulls me crashing into a storming sea, yet I can't pull my head above the waves. Where there was once so much light, there is now only darkness. Where I was once able to fly amongst the stars, I am now held down beneath the waves. Unable to breathe, hardly able to move. I open my mouth to scream, but the only sound to escape is a choking gasp of desperation as a wave of salty tears pours in. Finally, after what feels like eternity, I'm back on solid ground, trembling, soaking wet, and surrounded by the flames of my shattered mind. What happens when you go to war with your own mind? When you feel like you could swing from one extreme to the next, seemingly without your own control? I'm Amanda, and today we'll be discussing bipolar disorder and how it affects the lives of those of us who live with it. To understand how bipolar disorder affects lives, we first need to understand what it is and how it can differ from person to person. Bipolar disorder, once known as manic depression, is a mood disorder comprised of extreme mood swings from manic highs to severe depressions that changes how a person both experiences and expresses emotions. Diagnosis and treatment of patients with bipolar disorder, a review for advanced practice nurses, provides an overview of the research done on the diagnostic symptoms and treatments for bipolar disorder in order to help healthcare providers give patients proper treatment. The paper summarizes the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria of the two major types of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, as well as the symptoms of mania and depression to watch out for. In order for a patient to be diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder, he or she must have had at least one episode of mania in his or her lifetime. For a diagnosis of bipolar 2 disorder, the patient must have had at least one episode of hypomania and one episode of depression in his or her lifetime. You may be wondering what distinguishes a mania from a good mood and a depression from just feeling a bit down. The key is the severity and duration of the symptoms. At the high end, a manic episode is a period of elevated or irritable mood and increased energy that lasts for at least 1 week. Some of the symptoms of mania include low self-esteem, decreased sleep, pressured speech, racing thoughts, heightened activity levels, goal agitation, and risk-taking behaviors. A manic episode will cause marked impairment in a patient's life, such as straining relationships, harming schoolwork, or jeopardizing a job. A hypomanic episode has the same symptoms as a manic episode, but is often shorter, lasting at least 4 days, and is less severe, with the mood disturbance being observable by others, but not so severe that it causes a marked impairment in living. At the low end, a depressive episode is a period of at least 2 weeks marked by a depressed mood and loss of interest or pleasure in activities that the patient usually enjoys. Other symptoms include weight loss or weight gain, insomnia, which is the inability to fall or stay asleep, or hypersomnia, which is oversleeping. Depression can also cause agitation, fatigue, a feeling of worthlessness, a lack of focus, and, at the extreme, suicidal ideation. Depression causes significant distress to the patient and impairment to their lives. Besides mania and depression, there are self-specifiers used in the diagnosis of bipolar disorder to help practitioners provide more specialized care. For example, rapid cycling occurs when a patient experiences 4 or more manic, hypomanic, or depressive episodes in a 12-month period. A mood episode may also be accompanied by anxious distress, where a patient is keyed up or tense, unusually restless, has difficulty concentrating, has a feeling something awful may happen, and feels that he or she might lose control. A patient can also experience what's known as a mixed episode, which is an episode of mania or hypomania with at least 3 depressive symptoms or an episode of depression with at least 3 manic or hypomanic symptoms. While it's great to have a list of symptoms to look out for, that's all it is, an impersonal list of diagnostic criteria to use for treatment. Knowing the symptoms doesn't tell us what it's like to actually live with this disorder. Luckily, more and more people have come forward to share their experiences with bipolar disorder and share how manic episodes actually feel, as well as how destructive they can be. Carrie Fisher, best known for her role as Princess Leia in the Star Wars trilogy, became an advocate for mental health awareness by openly sharing her experiences with bipolar disorder. In an interview with Stephen Fry for his documentary, The Secret Life of the Manic Depressive, she described how she experienced mania. When you're galloping along at great speed, it is better than any drug that you could ever take. You're just so enthusiastic about everyone, and everyone must be enthusiastic about you. It's just, come along, I've got a great idea. I've got this unbelievable idea. Let's go to India. Then you just start going way too fast, and you're faster than anyone that you're around, and that's not fun. And you're on the phone far too long, and you're not getting any sleep. Nothing is going fast enough for you. Come on, keep up with me, you guys, come on. And even if it's not true that you're more talented, when you're manic, you feel like you are. I stayed awake for 6 days and I cried for 4 hours, and I was unable to stop, and I knew there was something wrong with that. Dr. K. Redfield Jamison gives a different perspective on life with bipolar disorder in her memoir, An Unquiet Mind. She recounts her gradual descent into a mania so severe that it included vivid hallucinations and a psychosis, the vicious cycle of her manic episodes causing her to spend exorbitant amounts of money that would create bills that would aggravate her depressions, and her individual struggle with being a professor of psychology tasked with overseeing patients when she herself was a patient. She also offers hope in her memoir, explaining the important role that her family and medication, once she accepted it, played in her recovery and continued management of her mood states. Bipolar disorder is often treated with mood stabilizers and second-generation antipsychotics. The use of antidepressants in treating bipolar disorder, however, is a topic of debate and controversy. The International Society of Bipolar Disorders Task Force report on antidepressant use in bipolar disorders looked at 10 studies testing the effects antidepressants had on bipolar patients in an effort to find a consensus on whether or not antidepressants could be recommended for use in treatment of bipolar disorder. This meta-analysis was unable to come to any sound conclusion, as many of the studies involved had issues involving testing methods or sample sizes. The ISBD did give a list of recommendations erring on the side of caution, however, based on the overall findings that the majority of the studies had, that at least in bipolar I disorder, antidepressants may cause an increase in rapid cycling or induce mania, and thus should not be used to treat bipolar I disorder. Antidepressants can, however, be used to treat bipolar II disorder if the patient has a previous positive history with antidepressants, but that they should be monitored for any signs of a mood switch. I experienced firsthand rapid cycling induced by antidepressants during my first couple of years at college. I was prescribed antidepressants to treat depression and anxiety during high school, but these medications caused me to swing into a mania in college and keep my mind there during the first half of each semester. During this time, I would skip sleep in order to obsessively study, and as my mania would progress, I would begin to pace my dorm room and create fantasy worlds with characters I could control, and at my height of my worst mania, characters I could interact with. Eventually, I became convinced that my medication was causing me to become a child, and so I stopped taking my medication without first consulting with my doctor, which of course caused my moods to cycle even worse. And I began to skip classes in order to wander around this fantasy world of mine, until eventually my body gave out due to exhaustion, and I crashed into a very, very deep depression. I felt I was worthless, I didn't see the point of getting out of bed, and I didn't see the point of going to my finals if I didn't even know the material. My grades had suffered so much that I lost a full ride scholarship and a research opportunity because of these episodes. However, since then, I have gotten help, and after taking a year off of school, I am back in college, and I feel like I am doing better than ever. I'm not the only one to have my education disrupted from a psychotic episode. Return to college after a first episode of psychosis found that 82% of students who experience a first episode of psychosis during their college years also experience a disruption in their education because of it. However, they also found that 56% of these students return to college like I have. While the study did not go on long enough to get an accurate statistic for completion of college, at least 9 of the students involved did graduate during the duration of the study. And the authors are adamant in reminding readers that college is more than GPAs and completion times, and that's enough hope for me. At the end of his documentary, Stephen Fry reveals that he asked each of his interviewees whether or not they would press a button that would free them from their bipolar disorder. The majority of the people he asked revealed that they wouldn't, and I have to say I agree. I, like most others, have a strange love-hate relationship with my disorder, often revealed in poetry that I write, like the one that I shared at the beginning of this presentation. And I think Dr. Jamison describes why much better than I can. Depressed, I have crawled on my hands and knees in order to get across a room, and I've done it for month after month. But, normal or manic, I have run faster, thought faster, and loved faster than most I know. Thank you for listening.